So, today as I was going for coffee, I decided to check out a new cafe that just opened. As I go near the door, I am surprised and happy to see an ex-girlfriend of mine when I was a kid. We stare at each other for a second and then I see she mumbles something and then comes towards me. I go in for the hug and after we greet, she says, "Do you remember what you've done to me?" I was baffled. We dated many years ago and we never had issues of any kind. No major fights, no abuse, no toxicity. As a matter of fact, she left me because I would not commit but remained on good terms for a while after, still hanging out until she found a job abroad and left. At first, I was scared shitless and immediately thought there was something strange. I asked to be more specific, but she wasn't telling. After a little chit-chat, she told me she was referring to the time me and my friend cleansed her house. It came back to me then. At the time, we were stupid, edgy, semi-goth kids, really into the weird and otherworldly stuff. After she complained about feeling her house was weird, a friend from our group offered to do some cleansing ritual, which he did while we were basically half drunk. According to her, when 7 years later, she talked about this thing with other people, shit started to hit the fan. Like you could feel presence around the house, drops of temperature, all the good stuff. She was vague, but apparently she believes some kind of ghost is now possessing her house. Something apparently unleashed after that thing we did, and she started telling about it to all her friends. Because nothing happened in the years prior. She then got back to England, but promptly came back here to escape from an abusive fiancé. At that point, I was really nervous, and I excused myself. She hugged me, says now there is only Christ in her heart, and that we should really have a cup of coffee. This gave me really was not a prank done to get back at me, and more so, her eyes. She once was the light of the room, always laughing and cracking jokes. The person I found today was sad, with very still eyes, not smiling, not anything, like a completely different person. About 5 years ago, I was living at home with my parents and my twin brother was there too. Every morning at about 7 a.m., we would both head out for a run. We had mapped out this giant loop that we would run. To make it a bit of a competition, I would run in one direction and my twin would run it in the other direction. That way, we could run and stay focused. Part of this loop was on the main street of the city my parents lived in. On this main road, there were these shady apartments kind of hidden by a bunch of trees. To the direction I was running, the view of the apartments was obscured by a giant hedge bush and I couldn't see the apartments until I was right in front of them. Out of my peripherals, I see a woman standing among the trees, staring at me. I immediately get the chills and do not turn to face her, because I didn't want to be rude. So I run on and forget about this a few minutes later. I pass my twin about 10 minutes later. He's going in the opposite direction as I. I get home and my twin isn't back yet, so I go about the rest of my morning routine, including taking a shower. I get out of the shower and my twin hasn't come back yet, and I'm starting to get a bit worried. An hour after I had gotten home, he's still not back, and I call him. He tells me he's on his way back, but has something he needs to tell me and my parents. He finally gets back home and tells us that he's running in front of these apartments, and he saw a woman hanging from the trees in front of this apartment. As soon as it's obvious he's seen her, a man comes sprinting from the apartments, wailing and screaming, "No! I can't believe she did this!" and grabs her body and lays her on the ground and starts performing CPR. It's obvious he is her husband. My brother calls the local police, and they dispatch an ambulance and police officers. My brother has to stay for questioning as a witness and all that jazz. He is obviously troubled by it. Since he was going the opposite way that I was running, he didn't have a hedge obscuring his view, and got a straight view of this woman hanging there. It's still hard for me to believe that The woman that I saw was staring at me out of my peripherals was dead the entire time. I do find it sketchy that the husband came running out as soon as it was obvious that someone had discovered the body. This is a bit too convenient if you ask me, but I don't want to say this man killed his wife without any evidence. My brother is never followed up by the police, leading me to believe that the death was ruled a suicide. I just still can't fathom that if I would have turned to face this woman, I would have discovered her about 20 minutes earlier than my twin, and it deeply troubles me that I didn't. This happened in the winter when I was 10. I was walking to the bus stop by myself, and out of nowhere, this red car drove past by me and stopped. I walked by it and a man yelled, "Hey kid!" I turned and saw this guy in his early 20s. He motioned for me to come, but I stood still. He then said, "I saw you coming out of 355 Terrace Road. Was that man your dad?" I had no idea how this person knew where I lived, and I got so creeped out that I ran. I glanced back and was surprised to see that he wasn't following me. That night, I was finishing up some homework where I had to track the phases of the moon. I went to my window and was shocked to see the same red car parked across the street. I quickly ran to my parents sobbing, and I explained everything to them. I didn't say anything earlier in fear of getting in trouble. My dad called the cops and they arrested the man on the spot. My parents went outside to see what the hell was going on, and the dumbstruck cop explained the bizarre story the man had told them. The guy was a rookie PI that was hired by a wife who suspected her husband was having an affair whenever he visited the city we lived in. The husband gave his wife our address and told her he was staying with a friend. When the police showed my parents the picture of the husband, they both laughed. The man didn't even look remotely like my dad. The only thing they had in common was their dark hair and light skin. The PI was sobbing in the cop car, and my dad didn't press charges because he felt bad.